Hello, I am Anawoltus bringing you once again another Huffington Post article critique, and I decided why not do something that it's around Christmas time. Well, it's actually a bit after Christmas when I'm recording this, and people have nativity scenes and such things, so I might as well decide to do a video that somehow relates to that. So here we have it. Topless femin activists stage number symbol Me Too protest against the patriarchy at the Vatican. One woman tried to steal the baby Jesus from the Vatican nativity scene. Ooh, that's really sacrilegious. Regardless of what you think about icons, theft of somebody else's property, that definitely is not something that anyone should really endorse. This article is written by Carol Curavilla. Please do not harass Carol. Please do not. So anyway, let's get on to the article. Three feminine activists disrupted Christmas worship services at the Vatican to protest what they believe is the oppression of women perpetuated by the Roman Catholic Church. Okay. Here it says, Ina Shevchenko, a Ukrainian activist who leads Femen, an anti-patriarchy organization known for staging topless protests, indecent exposure, to attract media attention, told HuffPost that this action was a way to stand in solidarity with the viral number symbol Me Too social media movement against the sexual assault and harassment of women. Now, I immediately have to say here that if you want to portray your movement in a positive light, I don't think doing something like going around topless is really going to help that. Because, well, let's be honest, in a lot of cultures, actually, most cultures, going around topless is considered to be something a bit indecent, improper, uncouth. So doing that isn't really going to get you on the good side of a lot of people. So I think your approach might be a little bit off there, off base. As feminists, Femin considers organized religion, with their institutions and leadership, to be one of the historical oppressors of women. Okay? She wrote in an email, the action at the Vatican is, if you want, an act of revenge. A historical victim, a woman, rises up against her historical oppressor. Wait. Let me get this straight. You're not actually taking any action against an active oppressor. You're not an active victim rising up against her active oppressor. You're a historical victim rising up against her historical oppressor. In other words, where's this justification really coming from? Are you really going to blame those people for the actions of their predecessors? That maybe it's because I'm an individualist. Maybe I don't understand this idea of collectivism and identity politics, where you put a bunch of people into groups, and if certain individuals in a group do bad things 100 years ago, it means that individuals in the same group today are still bad, even though they may not have been directly involved in that, indirectly involved in that, or have encouraged that in any way. So I'm really wondering, where's the justice in this? Well, isn't this supposed to be social justice? Just saying. Okay. Vatican police detained one topless activist Monday as she tried to steal a statue. Now, if you're Roman Catholic, that's a pretty sacrilegious thing to do. Of the baby Jesus from the nativity scene in St. Peter's Square, Reuters reported. The activist was identified on Femin's website as the Ukrainian sex-extremist Alisa Vinogradova. The activist had the words, "God is woman," I don't know where she got that from, painted on her body in English. The incident occurred 2 hours before Pope Francis delivered his Christmas message. So, presumably, yeah, this is Monday. This happened on Christmas Day. Someone goes in and tries to pilfer the nativity scene while topless, having God as woman. And I'm wondering what that means here. Because as we're going to read later, and as is already implied earlier, these people are atheists in the first place. So why even say God is woman? Isn't that a bit contrary? But there are two possible implications. The implication is either that the deity is a woman, which I don't think it is. I don't think that that's the implication that they're having. Or the implication is that the female gender should have a sort of divine connotation to it, which for an atheist to say doesn't really make sense. Just saying. Okay, and Vatican gendarme attempt to block a topless activist in St. Peter's Square on Monday before the Pope's Christmas address. That guy's a hero. Okay. 2 other feminine activists broke into the nativity scene on Christmas Eve, according to HuffPost France. They had the phrases number symbol me too and assaulted by church written on their bodies. Who is assaulted by church? Were they assaulted by the church? If they were, maybe they should take legal action instead of violating other people's property. Just saying. Two wrongs don't make a right. Shevchenko compared the feminine activists to a modern and free Virgin Mary. I don't know where exactly that comparison is coming from. Although Mary is the major female figure in Catholicism, Shevchenko believes she is portrayed as silent and passive. It's that same sort of passiveness, she said, that is expected of women who experience sexual assault. Now, I don't know how people do things in Ukraine. I don't know. I've never been to Ukraine. I don't know how people do things there. But Italy, or Vatican City, both in fact, as well as the United States, France, and a lot of other countries, they don't expect women to be passive and silent when they are sexually assaulted. In fact, I think you could find most people saying that if somebody sexually assaults you, you should probably report it to the police. That's probably what most people would say. And I think that that is a good way to deal with it. But apparently, she's fighting not against a present evil, she's fighting against a past evil. And then applying that mask from the past onto the present to justify her actions against the present, even though the real justification lies in the past. And again, it's not a very just thing to do, now is it? If you're just attacking people for the past. Despite her significant role, Mary represents chastity in Roman Catholicism. Maternity and passiveness all that is expected from women in patriarchal society. Now, I'm going to be just going off on a tangent here. This stuff mostly applies to Roman Catholicism and to some extent also Eastern Orthodoxy. In a lot of Protestant denominations, Mary isn't as emphasized and doesn't have as much symbolism associated with her as in the Catholics and Orthodox. But nevertheless, if you were to actually read the Bible, it doesn't really have that tone to it, to be honest. This is more based on probably a response to the Roman Catholic tradition rather than the texts of the Bible. Moreover, she is a woman with nor voice, neither sexuality in Roman Catholicism again. She does have a voice in Roman Catholicism, actually. There's a lot of supplication and intercession and stuff like that going on in Roman Catholicism. And in Roman Catholicism, it is assumed that Mary has an influence on Jesus, and that her voice does matter, actually. So this is actually an inaccurate representation of Roman Catholicism. Shevchenko told HuffPost, "The passiveness and silence of Mary is still often expected from women across the world as they get assaulted and attacked." Where? Where is this expected? It's not expected in Italy. It's not expected in the Vatican City, and it's probably not expected in Ukraine. If this is really what you're fighting against, maybe you should instead go to those places where this is happening instead of bothering people who are on your side on this issue, honestly. As the number symbol Me Too campaign has shown, many women kept silence about their horrible experiences for years, often under pressure out of fear and insecurity. And again, this is true. There are many women who have kept silence, but it is also true that increasingly, even today, the sentiment has been by the majority of people that if someone is raped, there has to be justice. And the real reason that there hasn't been justice about this is because these people had kept silent about this. It is because they did not say anything that no one was really pushing to have justice, because no one knew that justice was needed. Now, I'm not blaming these women for what happened to them. What I am saying is that if you want justice, you need to go after it right away, and you shouldn't have to wait decades, especially in a society where these things are considered illegal. Nevertheless, they have spoken. They broke the silence and shook the established system of dominance. And you know what? That's good. If someone has sexually assaulted you, you should point out what happened. Now, that being said, there are people who try to take advantage of the trust that the public places in women who claim sexual assault, and take advantage of that in order to make false claims, to gain money, or do other things. That also exists, and we need to acknowledge that it exists so that if someone gets accused, we can accurately judge the accused. Because, let's say there has been a person that has sexually assaulted one woman, but 3 women show up claiming to have been sexually assaulted. And because there is evidence and proof that one woman was sexually assaulted, then the individual is obviously guilty. But the other 2 women, there is a tendency by some to believe that since the individual sexually assaulted one, that he must have sexually assaulted everyone who makes a claim. So that would be at least 3 counts of sexual assault. But we need to examine every single count of a crime individually, because even though there is plausibility that the person has committed a crime, it is important to separate the guilty from the innocent and to not overburden the guilt on a man more than he deserves. That is how justice works. Okay. I went off on a tangent there. Similarly, our Mary, who is expected to be passive and quiet, now breaks the silence and points out the assaults of women by the church, by assaulting somebody else's property. Yep. That's how you justify it. You say, it's okay that I'm messing with other people's property. It's okay if I am indecently exposed in front of people. It's okay if I misrepresent the current religion of the Roman Catholic Church. It's all okay because someone of the same gender as I got oppressed in the past, or has been getting oppressed and now is coming out. It's okay that I do these things because somebody else got oppressed. It's okay that I can do all these things because somebody else got oppressed. That's really the problem here. Among the grievances Femin has against the Catholic Church are its hostile position against the LGBTQ community, its treatment of priests accused of pedophilia, and its historic opposition to abortion. Now, let's be very clear here. It's not just because of the Roman Catholic Church's position on this, because the Roman Catholic Church's position on this is something that I wouldn't call it openly hostile. At least its current position is definitely not openly hostile. I don't expect to hear a Roman Catholic priest tell anyone that that LGBTQ people should be attacked or insulted or in some other way degraded and destroyed, because that is what hostility would be. But so I think that is a slight exaggeration on their part. Now, that being said, though LGBTQism is something that is condemned, not just by the Roman Catholic Church, but if you actually read the Bible, it's very clear in both the Old Testament and the New Testament that those are things that are definitely considered to be a deviation from God's ideal according to Christianity. So it's not just the Roman Catholic Church is what I'm trying to say. It's something that it's an issue that relates to the entirety of Christianity. Its treatment of priests accused of pedophilia, and by that I would assume the fact that some Roman Catholics have been rather forgiving and have given second chances to individuals that probably shouldn't have gotten second chances. And you know what? I think that's a fair criticism, but if you're going to criticize someone for that, you should criticize the individuals directly responsible and not an organization as a whole that, on principle, does not endorse such actions. And its historic opposition to abortion, which again goes to a more religious issue, because that relates on whether or not the unborn person has a soul and is considered alive. And if that person is considered a living person that has a soul, then abortion is equivalent to murder, morally speaking. So that's really the pro-life position, that it's a living person, therefore it's murder. And the position of the pro-choice is that, number one, it's a woman's body, and number two, in opposition to the pro-life position, it's that that person isn't alive in the same sense as let's say, a born baby or an adult human in that sense. So those are the two sides of that issue. Shevchenko also noted that Femin wants to criticize the patriarchal nature of organized religions. And of course, again, on the pro-life, pro-choice, if you are unsure of whether in abortion you're just getting rid of an unwanted lump of flesh or you're killing a person, the side to err on is, I think, very obvious from a moral perspective if you're unsure. Because I would rather accidentally not remove a lump of flesh from inside someone than accidentally kill someone. You know what I'm saying? It again is a very moral issue. Now, of course, I personally am pro-life, so that's an entire different issue. We decry the notion of the Father God as well as male leadership in religious institutions, as women are still officially banned from preaching. So, because women are banned from preaching, no one should preach. But you're atheists anyway, so does it really make a difference? She wrote, "We oppose religious scripture, which often portrays women as inferior and weak creatures, their bodies as dirty and shameful, their souls as guilty." Now, let me just say, if you're talking about Christianity specifically, their bodies as dirty and shameful, their souls as guilty, that applies equally to men in Christianity as well. So that's not really that much of an argument against, let me think, against misogyny, as it is an argument against a negative view of human nature. But as for the portrayal of women as inferior and weak creatures, I guess I can see where that's coming from. Inferior would, I guess, be referring to in relation to authority within a family unit, where the man of the family is the top level of authority. Or weak creatures, well, to be honest, there is a biological degree. The average man is slightly stronger than the average woman. So that is, to a degree, a biological thing. And that is why, historically, it has been the responsibility of men to go to war and men to protect the women, historically speaking. So I see where this is coming from, but In contrast, the Marys who participated in the activism at the Vatican this year are in full control of their bodies and are in fact using them as political tools, she said. Yes, by going around half naked. That is your political tool. You're not making an argument. You're not going to have a debate. You are approaching something that is very valuable to someone, and you're messing with it. You're, trying to steal the icon of the infant Jesus? Is that what you're trying to do? The activist was identified as Alisa Vinogradova, a Ukrainian member of a radical feminist group called Femin, which has become known for its topless acts of protest. Femin, founded in Ukraine in 2008, is an atheist organization that believes in the separation of church and state. Well, I guess I can see why they attacked, because, of course, Vatican City, the Holy See, it is, by its very nature, a state that is intrinsically linked to a church. So I can see where they're coming from here. One of its stated goals is to work against religious institutions' influence in the civic, sex, and reproductive lives of modern women. Well, again, that would mean you'd have to oppose every religion that has anything to talk about civic, sex, and reproductive lives of women. So that's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, at least. There's several others. Mormonism. Any religion that teaches monogamy, I guess, would count as well. Any religion that teaches fidelity in marriage. Because it's one of those things where people think that they can go around and pick and choose aspects of religions. And if you're going to be serious about a religion, you shouldn't really pick and choose an aspect of it, because then you're being inconsistent on a very high logical level, where you're saying, yeah, I'll follow this religion, but only the parts that I like. In other words, it's not really about, for example, in Roman Catholicism, it's not really about worshiping God. It's not really about any of that. It's about you. In other words, you want other people to be atheists too. That's essentially what it is. And they masquerade it as it being something relating to removing specific aspects of religion, when in fact they just disapprove of it in general, because, again, God is woman. They are religious, in a sense, even though from an intellectual standpoint they're atheists. They are religious in the sense that they have a sort of religion of self, a religion of egoism that emphasizes the reflexive importance. That is to say, that from that religious standpoint, I am the most important person, and what makes me feel good, what I choose to do with my life is the best thing, which goes in stark contrast to a lot of viewpoints from a lot of different religions, where you are a servant to a God out there somewhere. So that is really the contrast that I'm seeing here. Femin's tactics and firmly anti-religious stance have earned criticism from some fellow feminists, including Muslim women who accuse the group of promoting Islamophobic rhetoric, which I wouldn't really call it Islamophobic because they're actually a bit more aggressive than that. So, but I would say that yes, their viewpoint is mutually exclusive with Islam. Not only their own religious viewpoint, but their viewpoint of how to run a society is mutually exclusive with Islam. So I definitely see where those Muslim women are coming from here. The Vatican has often been a target of feminist activism, including a similar protest at the Vatican's nativity scene on Christmas in 2014, Reuters reported. There you go. So that's it for this. So all in all, I have to say that there you go. This is what some of the activists today are doing. They go in and they blame people for the actions that those people didn't do. Then they go in and they claim that they're doing this for separating religion from people's personal lives and from religion from state, when in reality, what they really are promoting is a cult of self, an egoistic cult. So they're not really true atheists in that sense. Because, well, I guess it depends on how you consider it. Does devotion to a non-supernatural entity does that still count as atheism? If your God is just another human being, does that count as atheism? Does the atheism, the theism in atheism have to refer to a supernatural entity? That's what I'm wondering here. And I'm sure there's a lot of different viewpoints on that. So please tell me what you thought in the comment section below. Did I go over the top? Did I go too far? Was there something incorrect in what I said? Would you like to co-host an episode of this? I don't care who you are, as long as you can be respectful and to the audience, to me, and to the article, and to the person writing the article. I'm fine with that. And thank you all for watching, and I will be seeing you all next time on Awiltos over and out.